Greetings, friends. So today on this one, like I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to show you guys how I like to paint over and recycle old paintings I have in the studio that I'm just not really feeling, not digging. Some people are afraid to. The textures get weird, it comes out weird, the new textures just don't always look right. So I'm going to show you guys how to make this new, fresh, and also just show you how I like to do some of the shading on my planets again. I've had videos in the past like that, but I do get requests. I'm going to try to knock them all out at the same time. Also, if you dig this video, please check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/MarcusFusselArt. There should be a link in the description below. Basically, you can sign up monthly, pay as little as $3, get 1 to 2 one-on-one personal lessons with me a week through Skype, through Zoom, however you want to do it. Make personal videos just for you, for certain techniques that you want. If you have any questions on it, please comment or message below, or email me as well. All that'll be in the description below. All right, let's do it. Hello, friends. All right, here we go. So this is one I'm gonna paint over. It's an old Avatar one that I did. Just didn't come out the way I wanted it. I've had it for probably 4 or 5 years and just sitting around. It's a good canvas, so I want to do something new. But I wanted to show you guys how you can take old stuff laying around, even ones like this where I've etched out the paint with a palette knife. You got to really thick it up with paint when you paint over it, but you can make it all new. So I'm just going to do something fresh and new that I like, a little style that I've been doing like recently. Let me turn my fan around, have it facing towards me. It's always good to have a fan in your spot, gloves and the mask. Bam! All right, so here we go. So I'm gonna, I've been really into like the smear technique recently again. I'm always switching back and forth between them. I got a lot of nice bright colors here. I got the basic primaries minus blue. Then I had, you know, some green, some light blue. So I'm gonna use those. And let me see, I'm gonna get a little bit of white over here too. That's always good to add on top for some texture. So there we go. I'm gonna do the texture for the planet right here. I'm gonna mask up. Appreciate you guys watching today. Really getting the paint thick in some areas to make sure I'm covering the canvas. All right, so you see there, I really love all this. Instead of smearing completely or turning it, I kind of laid it down, dragged it a little bit, turned it, then lifted it up. Really mess with different lengths and times of that you're dragging and moving the paint. I wish there was more stuff right there. So this is something I do too that people might be afraid of. Get a piece of paper, take some color. Turn paper into a paintbrush. All right, I sprayed a little bit on there, right? I'm gonna try to just get the color. Let me show you. I'm gonna bend it. So I'm gonna go up here and see, add a little bit of texture in there. I kind of like the whites. Sometimes the paint you lay down because you're wiping it and laying stuff down to remove and move paint, it also might remove too much paint. In this case, I wanted to leave some white down there and it didn't seem to show up. So I'm gonna go in here and maybe see if I can add, maybe even smear a little bit of white on there. So I'm digging all that texture, especially on this side over here. All right, so I had to step away for a second. I'm back. All right, so right here, I'm really digging that. I just sprayed down some blue onto here. I might even spray a little bit of green. And I'm into this a lot too. Done over the years. Take some plastic. You might use this for textures. I like to take it and stretch it. Stretch. And then I'll like fold it. I like to dip it in here. And add some little bit of colored texture in some spots. So depending on the color, like whenever I'm doing earth, I normally won't spray down white at first when I lay the plastic down and pick it up. I'll go back later and spray the white down like this and do it like this to add the textures. I think you can get a little more precise actually. So I'm gonna go in here and get some of this green. I'm just gonna go through, add some textures in some spots where it might look a little weak, you know. May not be looking exactly the way you want it. I'm digging the green on there. I'm gonna try to, I'll just keep folding this too. Maybe sometimes different edges will give you different textures. All right, so I'm gonna add some green over here. Digging all this in here. Looks like little storms and stuff. This is a little weird over here. I'm gonna try to fill this in. I'm gonna try some white too because I think it's missing some white textures. Just some like stormy looking clouds. There you go, maybe a couple in there. Maybe add on to this white that's already there. So it's starting to get a look that I like. I'm gonna make sure I don't mess up anywhere that I like a lot, you know. Definitely made that mistake before. All right. Maybe a little more white over here, some clouds. All right, so I'm gonna roll with that. I'm just gonna roll with it. So this is the size lid I'm gonna use. I really like this. I wanna make sure I get all of that in there. It may not be perfectly centered as much as I wanted it to be. Ideally, it'd be over here. I just wanna make sure I get that texture in there. So maybe I can get more centered. All right, so one thing people do, including myself a lot, is the light and the dark side. Always spray white. You don't always need to. You see a lot of planet photos or renditions or whatever we're seeing from space. Doesn't always have white, so I like how bright that is. I'm gonna leave all that, but shade this edge, but not go black. I'm gonna get this green. This is where I use transparent a lot, Montana 94. Put the mask on. I'm gonna shade this side. And then maybe, I'm gonna think about it, maybe add a slight bit of black, but it's gonna be the cheap Walmart black, very crucial, because the Rusto black is very thick, like I've talked about, it covers a little too much. As soon as I can find it, or this cheap, whatever, this is the cheap local hardware black. I'm gonna use this black, because it has this tip, and you can get it to be almost transparent, so let's see. Gonna use black. All right, one thing real quick. A lot of times I don't like to move the painting in the video because I want it to go back where it was, but I kind of got a marker so I know where, because of the paint, I know where it's at. So I'm gonna do this because whenever I'm shading like this, I find doing the rocking back and forth technique gives you that perfect half shape. When I try to spray it this way or this way, I tend to go to the middle. If you do it like this and gradually come up from the bottom up, you can really get more precise, in my opinion. I actually learned that little rocking technique from Brandon McConnell back in the day, so props to you. Shout out. All right, so I think that's it. So I'm going to put this back right where it was. I'm going to match up the spray. Looks like I'm almost there. How's that look? A little off. Cool. All right, so you should see how it was shaded. Sometimes, you know, you might add, I'm going to make it a little more even here in the bottom. Plus I made a little mark with the lid, so I'll cover that up. No problem. All right, so I like that. So what I'm gonna do right now is, I'm gonna walk away about 5-10 minutes at the most. I'm gonna let this dry. That's how I like to do it. The fire thing's cool for live, but it still can leave rings. I want the planters to look super crisp and tight. So I'm gonna let this dry for about 10 minutes, and I'll come back, put this lid down, and then we'll do the rest of it. So I'll be back in 5. All right, guys, so back here, this is pretty much dried. I was gone for about a lot longer than 10 minutes. I had to do some stuff, but it's super dry. All right, so now I'm gonna take this lid, find that, like I said, I wanna make sure that I love this part the most. I want that to really be prominent in the piece. So I'm gonna make sure I match up the circular part of it a lot. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that right there. All right, so these colors that added beneath here, this red, once we add the black, I'm gonna add a little more red too and some blues, but I'm gonna do some like nebula type effects in the space gas kind of thing around it. So those colors will come through the black whenever I add it. I'm gonna, like I said, reapply the colors so it's brighter. All right, so let's do it. All right, so sometimes too, it didn't happen here, but you know, a lot of times I've had people say to me, and probably happened to you, the paint will bleed through. That's because it's too much paint, it's too wet. Letting it dry like I did, then adding the black, even that little bit of color I added before this black is not really gonna come through because the black is so dominant. But if you do add too much color, then the black immediately, you will have that fade through, which sometimes can be a cool effect. But if you don't want it, it can be annoying. So, all right, so this is pretty much covered. And what I'm gonna do is now, I'm gonna add one more glove. So I really hate getting paint on my hands, and not to mention, the more it gets in your hands and anywhere, it's seeping in your pores. It's almost similar to inhaling it, so you really need to try to avoid that, honestly. So, all right, so this right here, sometimes I'll give it a little fan. Just kind of get the paint starting to dry a little more, because I like the kind of sticky effect once the paint is dry, just a touch, just a scooch. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the plastic I would get earlier. I just tore a nice little piece off. It's like a jellyfish or a ghost. Ooh. All right, so remember where I put color. I'm just gonna take this guy. I like this end where it's all scraggly kind of, and I'm just gonna lay this plastic down, pick it up every once in a while, just see what kind of colors come through. It's gonna be mostly red, most likely, right? Because I added a lot of red. All right, so I kind of like how that's coming. I'm gonna go up here, especially where I had etched out the texture previously on the painting. That's where the painting before this one, this is where you want to do this the most, because now this texture is going to cover up the etching parts that might annoy you if you've ever tried to do this before. That's why. It's just because you can still see some of the painting you had. So now I'm going to start adding little, this is going to end up kind of being nebula, you know, type of little galaxies maybe in the background, just some basic texture. And remember, the deeper you go in, the more in here, the more color is going to come out if you added a lot of color, which I did right there. You see more of that orange and that red's coming through. Some of this blue up here looks a little weird, so don't be afraid to take that black if you don't like it and cover that up. All right, so I'm going to go back up here, do this again. I want more of that red to come through. I'm just going to randomly go through and see what it looks like if I do the texture right there. So see what comes out. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit of, I like to keep a little secret of mine. This Valspar is one of my favorites. These tips can get clogged up but still spray. Let's see if this one's still spraying. It's got a cool effect. Check this out. Well, that was kind of normal, but normally it'll be thinner and lay down weird little drips. So just trying to add some cool effect in here. Now, go back and maybe do the same thing with the plastic, just to give that some texture. That up there looked a little weird, so I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna take the cheap black so I can control it better. Just kind of cover up some of the parts with black. Just kind of blend it in a little bit, make it look a little more spicy. All right. I'm gonna take a little bit of this cheap yellow I like too and try some of that. You gotta move these cans so you don't hit them when you spray. Yeah, let's add a little guy here and a little guy there. Maybe a little yellow blob right there. Again, take this plastic and maybe even add texture to that yellow. What's up, man? How you doing?
Well, how are you?
Good. Okay, so and now what I'm gonna do is I sprayed some blue down this guy. I'm gonna go back and try to add some more texture into the nebula thing with this. because I like how that ends up making it look. Just a little bit here and there seems to do the job. Now, these aren't really coming out really awesome the way I was trying to hope they would, but the main goal was to just show you stuff you could do and really do the planet in the middle, which I'm going to pull up here in a second. I'm just trying to get these looking decent. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of the cheaper black and some of this again. Just to kind of like tone it down, give it some textures. Now I'm going to do some quick stars, which is just me spraying the white down. Just using my finger. Just using my finger. Now I'm going to stand. I like to do them up close and then stand like 5 feet away and give it a flick. That gives you a lot of different textures. If you notice some that are like coming out of nowhere, or if you get real close, you can get real fine with them and do real small ones. Which I'll try to do if I'm trying to be more accurate with them and really pinpoint like where I want them. If you notice, I'm really not spraying down. I'm really going like just one little spray, because if you spray too much down, it's hard to control it. All right, there's a little weird spot over here. I'm gonna take the black and cover that up. Bam, gone. All right. Now one thing also, now I think this is looking good. I like how it's coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and lift this up. Let's see here. All right, so I think that came out pretty cool. See, I let that dry and it still left a little bit of a mark over here. Maybe you can't see it in the camera, but what I'll do is, another reason why to have the cheaper spray paint black, I'm just gonna edge that out with black so you can't see it. This was hanging up somewhere and you wanted it to be almost perfect looking. So now that kind of fades away. There's one little guy right there to cover up. All right. Now one thing you can do too, I like to put a little bit of space kind of gas in front of it. It really, I think, sets it back and makes it a little more alive. So let me see what I got here. Let me add a couple sprays. This is where the can's starting to yeah, now it's starting to get spray a little bit thin, which is kind of what I was going for before. Sometimes I'll go like this and do a zigzag. Yeah, but you can see I got a little bit in front of the planet. I just wanted it to kind of set back in there. One thing I am going to do is take the white. I like to do a final touch. I like to take the white. I like to get a palette knife. Remember that guy that you etch out the painting with? Just go and give it a dip right there. And then I go in and like turn it. So I'll get a bunch on there and just kind of spin it, let the paint fall down the palette knife, and you can do bigger stars that just are brighter, obviously. Like add one in the center of this yellow. That can look cool. Or you can take it and like literally scrape and get a lot of paint on it. Then you can kind of go around and do a bunch of stars. Because it's almost like an ink pen at that point. You're providing lots of paint onto the palette knife. All right, so you should be able to see some brighter stars in there. It's good to clean the palette knife off too. And I'm gonna fold this, get a fresh surface, because So it applies the paint a lot cleaner. So you should see some of these stars coming through now. Because they're larger. All right, so I think that's good. So I just wanted to show you guys the basics of I could take a painting I didn't like much before, I'd messed up, or whatever the case was, then I wanted to make it fresh. I'm gonna let this dry. I might end up adding some asteroids onto it or doing something else. We're just leaving it. But for now, I just wanted to show you the basics of what you could do. Thanks for watching.